Okay, welcome back, everybody. I hope that you have a happy stomach now, that won't be bothering you, distracting you for a little while, and that those of you that needed coffee to caffeinate your system found a good cup of coffee, that you had good fellowship with people around your table. And thank you for coming back after the first 50 minutes of class. You came back. That's always a good sign when those that don't have to come back, come back. So we've been talking about what good teaching looks like, and I have this video that's only less than a minute. If you can read what it says up there in the corner, it says bad teaching methods. And this was produced, I think, in the 1950s. It's black and white. And hopefully this is not your experience in math class. Let's give it a try here.
Mr. Grimes, mathematics teacher, is displeased with the progress of his 9th grade class in mathematics.
You see what low grades you made on your weekly mathematics test? More than half of you failed. Most of those who passed just got by. Nobody had 100%. This is the poorest class I've had in a long, long time. Most of you have no foundation at all. Now, the trouble's with your attitude. You don't pay enough attention in class. You don't do enough work outside of it. You don't know what the word study means. You haven't the slightest idea. Don't you realize that mathematics is an important subject? I tell you right now that unless you get over your lazy habits and come up to the standards I've set for this class, many of you will have the pleasure of repeating this course next semester. Oh, what is it?
Don't you want to be in his class? I just love how, like, when he started to get angry and everything, he just conveniently just happened to have like 2 big rulers or something there to like start carrying around and smacking into his hand. Like, no threat there, no threat there, just encouragement that they'll do better. Yeah, did anyone have any teachers like that in school? Oh, yeah? Just love to like berate you. So here we are, we're back again, and we're going to talk about this subject now. What factors have the greatest impact on student learning? Okay, so we're starting to narrow down our focus. And this, again, is a result of a survey of college students. So we're talking about young adults and adults. And I'm going to give everybody a handout. And what I want you to do is I want you to find somebody that you did not work with the first time, or at least add in someone new to your group. Okay, we're not working in pairs. Let's work like in 3s and 4s this time, okay? Feel free to get up and move around the classroom. Bring something to write with because I'm going to give you a handout. And what this handout is on this nice blue piece of paper. And if you've got a 3-ring notebook, it already has hole punches in it if you want to slide it in, if you want to keep this. But it says here, what factors have the greatest impact on student learning? According to students, okay, so these are students who are saying these are the things that really help me to learn. Okay, and this list only includes like the top 10 responses from students, okay? It says the following 10 teacher factors impact their, this is what students report, that these 10 factors import. All right, turn it around again. We'll start all over again. Hey, welcome back. We're going to do something different this time. I'm handing out this blue piece of paper. It's called Which Factors Have the Greatest Impact on Student Learning? And if I can read this next sentence, we're going to keep going. It says, according to students, comma, the following 10 teacher factors impact their learning of course material. And these are not listed in any particular order, except for alphabetical order. It's not by order of importance or anything like that. And what I want you to do is I want you to look through these 10 factors, the top 10 that students reported, and you're going to answer these questions. It says, which factors do you think have the greatest impact on student learning? the least impact on student learning. And what I want you to do is place each of these factors into one of the groups below. And the groups are greatest impact, moderate impact, and least impact. Okay, and there's hints there in that, there are an equal number of lines to what you're supposed to put the things in. So there's 4 for the greatest impact, 3 for the moderate, and 3 for the least. And it says, for simplicity's sake, you may write just the bold-faced word from each factor. So these are phrases, short sentences, but if you just want to write the bold-faced word, you can. But I want you to work together as a group, talk it over, and hopefully agree, and then write down your answers on the line, and then choose a person from your group who will be the reporter for your group. Okay, so this person will tell us which ones that you decided were the greatest, which ones were the moderate, which ones were the least. Can everyone do that? Is that a good explanation? Okay, so I'm going to put down the microphone, and I'm going to come around, and I'm going to hand one of these, be thinking, scoping out, looking around the room. Who do I want to work with? There's some new people in the room. Pastor Sturge is here now. Maybe you want Pastor Sturge in your group. Maybe you want a Braganza in your group. You never know. Okay, here we go. Okay, so use some process of elimination. Figure out maybe what you think definitely has got to be down there amongst the least so that you can get rid of those ones. And then you got to start thinking like, okay, so the rest must be moderate or the greatest. That's where you have to figure out the fine line between being moderately important and of greatest importance. I hear lots of good discussion here, debate in the groups. It's awesome. And remember, you don't have to put them in order from like 1 to 10. The 3 least can be in any order at the bottom. The 4 greatest can be in any order at the top. The 3 moderate can be in any order in the middle. I'm hoping that you will. You don't have to, though. Well, I mean, the idea of having to come to agreement makes you have to like really think and wrestle with it and talk it over amongst yourselves. Are you just copying now? What's going on over here? Oh. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Interesting. Wow, you've got the great big gap in the middle. Come on, go out on a limb. Go out on a limb. This is what students think, and they think there's a lot of validity to it. So, I'm sure people here will disagree with what these students that were surveyed think. Mm-hmm. You can ask me a question. I may not answer it. Okay, somebody already asked me that question, and I'm not giving away the answer right now, but I'm interested in hearing what you guys think it is. What are they saying it is? You're right. Okay, let's finish up. I'll give you another 60 seconds. 60 seconds, the pressure's on. It's been over 10 minutes now. Come on. You got to commit. You got to make commitments here. Take a risk. Take a risk. Who cares if you're wrong? It's not going on your permanent record. But make some educated guesses. And I hope that you've all found or nominated a spokesperson for your group. Okay. Should I do a countdown? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Time's up. We've hit the deadline here. Okay, now if I had really prepared and really thought this out more, then I just had this revelation that we could be like playing something like the Family Feud or something here, and like the top 4 answers are on the board for the greatest impact, and everyone has to stand there and see if the answer's there. But I don't have any buzzers and rotating things. There's no prizes yet, Pastor Pete. No prizes yet. Just pride and a job well done, the effort made. All right, so raise your hand if you are the spokesperson for your group. I want to see who these people. Pastor Sturge. And this group here? Pastor Steve, you've been nominated. All right. Let's see if there's any consensus on some of the least. Let's work our way up, okay, from the bottom. I'm interested in hearing at least one thing that maybe every group has in common about the least. So, Mr. Roberge, tell me one thing that you think is definitely there as one of the least. The research record of the professor. Do the other groups concur? Okay, you are correct. Okay, so let me write this down. Okay. See if I can start writing here. Research record. Okay, that is not one of the most important factors that students feel it's really going to help them learn. Okay, what about another one that you think definitely must be down there at the bottom of the list? Pastor Sturge. What did you say? Knowledge. I got to look at this one. Knowledge of the subject. Does anyone else agree with knowledge of the subject? This group does, but all the other groups are saying no. Okay. Let me ask this group over here. What else do you think is down there at the bottom of the list?
Expressiveness.
Expressiveness of the teacher. Okay, does any other group have expressiveness of the teacher at the bottom of the list? 1, so 1, 2, 3, 4. You guys said no, no, no. Okay, but the majority of the groups are saying that expressiveness of the teacher should be down at the bottom. Is the majority right? They are. They are. Expressiveness. The expressiveness of the teacher was reported by students to not have like a really high impact on them as far as their learning goes. Okay, the expressiveness of the teacher. Although it does have some place, I mean, we all like to have an expressive teacher, but as far as how they learn, expressiveness, they didn't rank at the top or even in the middle. Okay, so we need one more. So we had the research record of the teacher, we had the expressiveness of the teacher. This group back here said the knowledge of the subject, and they were in the minority, and the majority who said that they had it all wrong, the majority was right again. Okay, that is not down there at the bottom of the list. It's not in the category of the least. What about this group back here? Sir, what did you put as another one to put down at the least? Sensitivity to the level of the students and the rate of progress in the class. Now, I saw that on lots of lists as one of the very first things that they wrote down, and it usually was ending up at the top in the greatest. So I'm thinking that maybe you guys are in the minority here. Did anyone else have sensitivity at the bottom of the list? Okay, so this group and this group. So there's 3 groups, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the majority are saying sensitivity does not belong down there, and the majority is right again. Okay, so we're still looking for another one to be down there at the very bottom. So it's not sensitivity, it's not knowledge. Okay, let's go over here to the group that likes to laugh. Rapport with students. Anyone else put rapport at the bottom? 1, 2. So the rapport group is in the minority, and the majority is right again. It's not rapport. So we're narrowing it down a little bit more. Okay. Does anyone think it's teacher preparation? No. Oh, really? Let's see. Could it be clear and comprehensible explanations? No, no one's going for that one. Interaction with students in the class. No, it's not interaction with students in the class. Preparation. How about those clear course objectives? Nope, it's not that. I'm going to give it to you. Interest. Really? Really? And I know it's funny to think that, but the amount that the amount of interest that the teacher expresses about his subject really did not have like a high importance to the students as far as impacting their learning. Their interest in the subject as students was more important than maybe their teacher's interest in the subject was. Oh, objection noted. Objection noted. But they weren't surveying Bible college students, obviously. Obviously not. Okay, so now we've got the bottom 3. The interest of the instructor, his research record, and then the expressiveness of the teacher. Okay, those 3 things, all associated with the teacher, weren't the most important. Now we're into the moderate and the great. So you know all the rest are either moderately important or greatly important. Let's see, let's go back to this group here in the rear, and let's pick one that you know is definitely in the great category. Sensitivity. How many people put sensitivity in the top rank? How many groups we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These two groups in the middle did not put sensitivity in the top rank. Okay, I'm going to put sensitivity on the list where it belongs. Moderately important. Moderately important. Okay? Moderately important. Have I not called on one of the groups yet? Have I called on your group? Yeah, you were the first ones. Okay. Let's pick out something else. Pastor Sturge, your group, something that you know it's got to be there in the top 4. What does your group say? Rapport with students. Anyone think that rapport, besides them, should be in the top 4? Not very many. Not very many. Okay, let's put it on the list where it belongs. Rapport. Students thought that rapport with their teacher, going both ways, was really important. It really helped them. It really helped them learn more. Okay? Rapport. Let's talk about what rapport is, because I got asked that question a few times. These are college-age students. Yeah. Not 4 and 5-year-olds. No. The research record of a kindergarten teacher is not that important. So rapport is how you get along with people. And so if we have rapport, it means I can talk to you, you can talk to me, we can relate to each other, we're comfortable with each other. You can feel free to ask me a question, I can feel free to call on you, and we're relaxed. It's a comfortable atmosphere, which was one of the things that some people mentioned in that first exercise, being comfortable in the classroom. You know, a good teacher makes it comfortable to sit there and to learn. Okay, let's go back to Pastor Jerry's group. What else do you think must be in there in the top 4? Preparation. Teacher preparation, organization. Anyone else put that in the top 4? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Almost all of the groups. In fact, everyone. And you are all correct. Preparation. You got one right? Good job. Excellent. That's important. Preparation. Okay. Let's see. Let's go over here. Pastor Steve, what else does your group think should be in the top 4?
We had knowledge of the subject.
Knowledge of the subject. Raise your hand if your group says knowledge of the subject should be in the top 4. These guys are saying no. They're saying no. These guys are saying yes, 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 yes. And the no's have it. It's moderately important. Knowledge of the subject. Knowledge of the subject. It's important. It's moderately important, but it's not like the most important thing to them as they're discerning what really helps us to learn the most. Helps us to learn the most. Okay, let's go over here to this group, the dysfunctional group over here. You're functioning now? Okay, good. You got it together. You got it together. All right. What else do you think belongs up there in the top 4?
We put explanation.
Clear and comprehensible, if I can say the word, so it's comprehensible. Clear and comprehensible explanations. Anyone else agree? Oh, it's pretty unanimous there, and you are all correct. Okay, so what did we abbreviate that as? Explanations. So there's only 2 left. Only 2 left. One is great and one is only moderately so. So what are the 2 that are left? The clarity of course objectives and interaction with students in the class. Let's go to your group here, sir. What do you think belongs there as the 4th great factor?
Objectives.
He says objectives. Clear and comprehensible objectives. Any other group think that that belongs in the top 4? Wow. Only the sound man agrees with you. He raises his hand for everything, though. Okay? So, let's see where the objectives lie. Are they in the great category or only in the moderate category? Objectives. Objectives. So that puts interaction over here as one of the top factors that contribute to students learning best. Yes, you may ask a question because we have rapport and we can interact.
This is what students thought was important.
This is what they believe was. Is it important?
Is this
Well,
really important? We had 3 out of
I mean, we could argue over, what is the difference between grade and moderate. I think what they have down there as far as least, like the research record of your professor, I mean, if you didn't even know if your professor had a research record or not, I mean, is that going to affect how much you learn? Unless it somehow is like creating confidence in you, like, oh, I've got a really good teacher here. He knows a lot, he's published. His expressiveness, expressiveness is important. I think we don't like to be put to sleep by our teachers. But, the way that these students said, his expressiveness, is he really animated and smiling all the time? And, does his voice go up and down and all over the place? They said that wasn't like this supreme importance to them, So I think, yeah, that can go down there near the bottom. And then the interest that he expresses in his subject, that's kind of a strange one. But something has to go down into the bottom 3. I could see that where that might end up in moderate, but probably it just missed out and ended up getting kicked down into the lowest level. I think the students were thinking it's more important the interest that I bring to the subject than necessarily what he expresses about the subject. Although one of the qualities that we did write down that was important to at least some of the students in this class was that if a teacher was passionate about what he was talking about. And that sort of is infectious, right? It sort of inspires you like, oh, this has got to be good because he really loves it or she really loves this stuff. So I think that's important. But in this particular big study, they put expressiveness down there. Let's look at the top 4. I don't think there's any argument that someone that comes in prepared and organized, we really, really appreciate that, and it really helps us to learn, especially if they thought it through and they're sort of guiding us along. I don't think anyone's going to say, who cares about preparation and organization? Clear explanations. That one came up over and over again when we were talking about your own experiences, the clarity, the clearness. Can they say, they might have all these degrees that come after their names, but if they can't put it on a level where I can grasp it, who cares? Don't get me talking about my college physics professor because it just makes me angry, okay? He was so smart, he was dumb, Oh, okay, calm down, okay. And then you look at the other 2 that were really important to them was this rapport and interaction. And I think what you see there is that students like it when they can be involved in their own learning and be involved in the classroom. If they can ask the teacher questions and they feel comfortable and they can relate to that person. They're approachable. I mean, we on our list, I mean, we had words like they were kind and they were patient and they were loving and things like that. I think that kind of falls under the category of rapport. Like, they're approachable. You know, and they might be hanging out with you after class like the teachers do here in Bible college. You can sit down, they'll have a rap session afterwards. There's a rapport. You can have a dialogue with them. You can talk about things. Okay, they're not high up here on a pedestal, on a pillar. It's like, bow down and worship me because I'm a PhD. You know, and you just write it all down, memorize it, and spit it back out on the test. You know, and I'll call that you educated. You know, you've learned something. So those sorts of things. And then the interaction, we talked about that earlier. The fact that you get to like work together, talk things out. I mean, there were lots of really good debates and conversations that were going on all over this room. You know, when people weren't laughing or something like that. But, you know, that's the part of the fun of it too. You know, and if you had to like say, oh, it's got to be one of these things, and then you're reasoning and you're thinking. It's not passive. When there's interaction, you're not just passive. Just receive, write down, type, close the laptop, close the notebook, go home, read the book, study for the quiz, come back the next time. There's something that's going on. There's life there in the classroom. And there's some things, you know, I know that I am not the be-all and end-all of teaching and explanations. And I have had students that I have done everything that I can imagine, except for like stand on my head and spit wooden nickels to get them to understand something in math. And the kid sitting next to them turns to them and says, do this, this, and this. And they go, oh, why didn't you say that? And it's like, I thought I did, you know? And it's because I allowed interaction in the class. They learned something. I mean, I feel like I taught the one student, and then that student taught the other student that I couldn't reach. Okay, so interaction really is important in a classroom, you know? And I think that's part of teaching. You know, when you think back classically to education, we saw that video, the black and white thing where everyone was sitting in rows, and the guy was up there marching around, disappointed because nobody got 100 on the test and nobody was really studying. You know, I think we've kind of realized that that doesn't always work. You know, maybe there's some things you need everyone to be quiet, sit still, and listen, and that's just the way it's got to be for some things. But it can't be like that all the time. It can't be like that all the time. It just kills. It saps the life out of you. So I think that's why they put the interaction and the rapport there. Because teaching, I love this. Pastor Shabeli mentions it every once in a while. Teaching is relational. Relational. And if I can have a relationship with my teacher, if I can have a relationship with the people in my class, then I'm going to learn something. You know, and it might be something that I'd even expect there. It wasn't even on the syllabus. It wasn't even one of those clear and comprehensible objectives. I learned something beyond that. So I think that's why that's there. Sensitivity, yeah, that's important. They didn't rank it like as one of the highest things. At least it made it into the moderate category. Of course, knowledge of your subject is important. You know, you don't want to walk in there not knowing what you're talking about. And, you know, having clear objectives, yes, that's important. But they're saying that those are sort of like second-tier things. They are important. But these sort of like relational things, the ability to communicate clearly and explain things, you can interact with people, I'm prepared, I'm organized, and we can talk to each other, we have rapport. Those things really work well. You know what? And I'm just going to make this point, and then I'll call on you. One of the guys that, you know, oversaw this study said that the thing that he noticed, let me see, I want to quote him really well. This is his summarization. He says, it is less important that you know a lot or show that you know a lot than that you can explain clearly what you know. Okay? So it's less important that you know a lot or show that you know a lot, with all of your research degrees and everything like that, than that you can explain clearly what you know. Okay, you're not some highfalutin intellectual who cannot clearly communicate to students and share something and impart something to somebody else. It says, experienced teachers often cut back on the content of their lectures and concentrate on clear expectations, examples, and making sure that students have understood the smaller amount that they have chosen to cover. Okay, I'll read that again. Experienced teachers often cut back on the content of their lectures. They decide to not try to cram a whole bunch of things in there, all kinds of knowledge. They cut back on the content of their lectures and they concentrate on clear explanations, examples, and making sure that students have understood the smaller amount that they have chosen to cover. Okay, they cut back on the content of their lectures, they concentrate on clear explanations and examples, and make sure that their students understand the smaller amount they have chosen to cover. As a teacher, you always have this choice, and you face it every single time you get up in front of people. Do I teach a lot of things and spread it really thin? Or do I teach just a few things and go deep? Okay? You walk into the classroom and you've got this book, it's got all these pages in it, and let's say you're teaching Bible college and you got 15 weeks to teach something, and it's like, okay, I've read this book, there's a lot of stuff in here. Can I teach everything that's in this book? Probably not. Well, I could cover everything that's in this book, expose everybody to what's in this book, and, they'll have a really shallow knowledge of what's in this book. What about this book? There's a lot in this book, And do I want to just try and get through as much of it as I can in my course and give people a really shallow knowledge so they can, pass the multiple choice test and everything? And I'm not stopping to really make applications and give examples and illustrations. Or do I want to decide, there's some things in here that are really, really important, and I'm making really good educational choices, and I'm deciding I'm going to go deep. I'm going to go deep. And what I do cover, my students are really going to know it. And they're going to know it well. It's going to go in here, not just in here. It's not just going to be head knowledge, it's going to be heart knowledge. And that is going to activate doing, application in their lives. Whereas if I just skim across the surface, when you skim through things, and you ask, someone comes up and asks you a week later, hey, what did you get out of that? Out of what? I don't really remember what that was all about. I think it was about, and it's gone. It's gone. It's just like thin veneer. And it doesn't go in. It doesn't go in. I cram it in there for what I need to do to pass the assessment, but that's about it. It's really important. You, as a teacher, you make real important decisions. As a pastor, when you're preaching, you're like, do I want to stop here and I want to park on this, and do I really want to drive it home? You hear Pastor Shabeli say, I went to Ghana and I spent a whole year just teaching about love. And you hear other people say, I taught John 3:16 for months. There's choices. They're led of God to make those choices, but it's like, wow, those people they're never going to forget that. I mean, When we say that people learn something, what does that mean? Does it mean that they crammed in some information, some knowledge into their brain so that they could impress you on the test and get an A? Or when you learn something, it becomes a part of you, and you can use it. And it changes you and how you act and how you think and what you value. So that's why I kind of forgot why I started talking about that. But as far as like, the knowledge part of things, deciding really what is the most important thing. Here, I'll finish off his comments. It says, teachers who establish rapport with their students, who engage their students in interaction within class, achieve the best results. And that was one of the things that they noticed. They also observed teachers teaching and the results that they got in their classes. What did students actually learn? What did they retain? It says, one-way communication can be relatively ineffective, however competent. One-way communication where every time you show up to class, all you do is get talked at. And you never get to talk amongst yourselves. And you see people walking out of class and they don't talk about what they've just learned. They just go their separate ways because, it was really never activated in their lives. It never became really interesting to them. They just got talked at and talked at and talked at, And I think outside of, anointing and the Holy Spirit really speaking to people and sort of carrying on a dialogue inside of you, you don't want to just always just come up and stand in front of people and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and say, thank you, we'll see you next week. And this was the thing that I liked the best out of all these things. It says, it is much easier to learn to be interactive and clear than it is to learn to be expressive or to improve your research record. The things that were down there on the bottom of the list, some people just don't have it in them to be really, really expressive. They can try. I mean, I'm kind of dating myself, but if you were in Lennox and you ever had Pastor Stan Ashby as a teacher, okay, he was not super expressive. He had like this sort of like monotone delivery and everything, and he just went on and on and on and on. But, he was very organized. He gave clear explanations. He had so much else going for him. And it's like, he wouldn't even have been Stan Ashby if he was really expressive, That was part of his mystique, That was what was so awesome about him. So, expressiveness, some people have it and you don't, and it's really hard to develop it. But you can learn how to be a clear explainer, and you can work at that. Getting feedback from your students and learning from them, really, what is the best way to explain this so that you're targeting and hitting everyone so they really understand. And you can work on having rapport, and you can create interaction among students. Just design activities where you throw out a question, you give them something to do, and all of a sudden learning is taking place. And you go around and you monitor it, and it's awesome. And then, of course, just learning how to be organized and learning how to plan. That's something you can learn how to do. It's not like something that's like a talent, like being expressive or being funny, having all kinds of expressions on your face and telling jokes and stuff like that. And I don't know, all of us are working on research papers. I don't think so. So we're going to talk, we've got a little bit of time here left. We got, an hour and 45 minutes. I want to talk about some of the things that are there in the great category. The great category, the things that we can learn about, the rapport, the preparation, the explanations, and the interaction. And let's move on here. You can go back to your original seat if you would like, or if you've made new friends and you like where you're sitting, you're welcome to stay. Thank you for participating. It does my heart good to see people who are interested and motivated and friendly enough to go up to people that they don't know a lot about and work with them. Here's a quote from a professor at the University of Michigan. His name is Bill McKeechee. Bill McKeechee says, professors known as outstanding lecturers do two things. They use a simple plan and many examples. And the person I thought of as soon as I read that was our very own Pastor Schiavelli. Simple plan and many examples. Outstanding lecturers do those two things. You walk into a message where Pastor Schiavelli you can walk late into a message where Pastor Schiavelli has been teaching and know exactly what he's been talking about. You know within the first 2, 3, 4 minutes exactly what Pastor Schiavelli's message is going to be about. He is so clear, he's like a laser-guided missile. You know, he is like targeting this thing. And then, you know, so the laser is pointing at the target, and he's already said, this is what it's about. And then all the examples, the illustrations, it's like all these things coming in from all these different directions, and they're all hammering that thing. And, you know, you walk out of one of his messages, and if you can't tell somebody what he talked about that night, I don't know, maybe you had a stroke or something. You know, and you lost half your brain somewhere right at the very beginning of the message, or you just can't remember. You got hit on the way out, and you have amnesia because it's so clear. You know, he meets this guy's you know, characteristics for what is a really good lecturer. And he's exciting, and of course he also has the advantage that he's very expressive, and but he knows what he wants to do. Let's talk about rapport now. That was one of the things that was one of the top things. Rapport. And I'm just going to throw out some things. You don't have to write every single one of these things down. It'll be enough if you just kind of go, oh yeah, just nod your head, and yeah. Or maybe you might be going like, what? What? I never thought of that, but maybe you go, wow, that falls under rapport. Okay, so these are things that teachers who have good rapport, these are different qualities that they possess. Okay, let's see if I can demonstrate some of these. Okay, teachers who have good rapport have active movement. They don't just stand up there behind the podium the whole time. Pastor Schaller is really good at that. Pastor Schaller, you know, with him talking about going out on the edge and hanging off the edge of the stage, and you're wondering, oh my gosh, is he going to fall off and break his neck? They make eye contact, rapport eye contact. They don't, like, their faces aren't stuck down in their notes, and they never look at their students. Okay? This one, oh, I have a bad time with this. Having good posture, just a simple thing. You know, you don't look like you're tired and having a bad day. The pacing, not pacing like back and forth like this, because that really makes people nervous, but just how you pace your lesson and what it is that you're trying to teach. You're not going too slow. You're not going so fast that people can't keep up with you. You keep it at a nice pace, and because you're making eye contact and you're looking at your students, you kind of get an idea like, oh, look at them. Their eyes are glazing over. I've lost them. Okay, let's back it up. So you can gauge your pacing if you have rapport with your students and you can see what's going on with them. You know, if they're all looking down and they can't even look at you, you know something's wrong. Okay? And then gestures. Gestures just help liven things up. Okay? That's part of rapport. Okay? Expressing some sort of enthusiasm. Okay? That helps with rapport. Yes, sir. Some of it is, yep. We'll get into some other things. Enthusiasm about your teaching, enthusiasm about your students, like when they come in the door, it's like, hey, I haven't seen you for a week. Awesome, you made it. Or we missed you last week. I heard you were sick. You know, your enthusiasm, your love seeing them there. And you can have some enthusiasm, of course, about your subject matter, especially if you're teaching the Bible. You know, it'd be really bummer if you came in like, yeah, we're going to open up to the Old Testament again this week. Not my favorite testament. but somehow we'll learn something this week. Let's pray, okay? It's good if you show some sort of confidence when you stand up in front of people instead of being timid and hide back here and keep this between me and you, and I don't dare come out to where you are. Here's a little quote, rapport. Effective teachers try and try and try, and they let their students know that they're trying. Effective teachers try and try and try, and they let their students know that they're trying. We're not deities or anything like that, supernatural beings that are teaching. It's like we're human as all get out. And, and we can say this and see all the blank expressions on everyone's face. It's like, wow, I'm going to try that one again because I think I just lost all of you. So let's see, what's another way I could illustrate this? What's another example I could come up with? I'm going to try that again. Did you get it this time? And people are still like, Like, all right, let's try this way. And you try, and you let them know that you're trying, and you're working for them because you're a student-centered teacher. It's not like, oh, you're stupid because you can't understand me. I'm insulted that you don't understand me the very first time. I'm going to try. I'm going to try because you're important. You are important. That the fact that you are important, and I think what I'm teaching is important, I'm going to try. Okay? And that creates rapport. You feel like the teacher's on your side. Okay? Taking risks in the classroom. Not always doing things the exact same way every single time. Sometimes you make a fool of yourself. Sometimes it's really awesome. And sometimes being a fool is awesome. I have to teach little kids every Friday afternoon for an hour, K through 5 kids. And I make the biggest fool of myself for like a half an hour of that time. And they love it, and that's their favorite Bible class of the week. And I wouldn't change it, but, I would be embarrassed if you all showed up for it. So don't come. Smiling, being optimistic, having good hygiene. That helps with rapport, if people can stand to be around you. Dressing the part, according to where you are. I don't necessarily want to wear a sweater and a tie and a shirt, but I'm teaching a master's class tonight, and so I gotta dress the part here. If you listen when students talk to you, if you learn their names and you use them when you talk to them, okay. So that shows that you are interested in them. It creates rapport. When they tell you something, and they're telling you something that's really important, really meaningful to them, you're not like, oh yeah, that. Okay, let's move on. If you show empathy, like some people are pouring out their hearts and their souls to you, and they want to know that they're connecting with you. And that you hear them and that you understand, you care. Or at least showing interest in what they're saying to you. For some people, if you can be expressive and you have a good sense of humor, being humorous is awesome. Humor just relaxes people. They call it the social lubricant. You get people laughing and all of a sudden, oh yeah, I'm not uptight anymore. I've laughed. I've used those muscles. I've got oxygen going through me now. It's great. And sometimes that becomes part of being a fool, taking a risk. It makes you appear human. And studies show that if people laugh and are in a good mood, they remember more of what you say. So, it makes class time kind of go by. It's more enjoyable. And it just shows that you see joy in life. You have joy in your life. You just have to make sure that you're not sarcastic because that just sort of wrecks everything. Just ruins the rapport. You can just flush all your good work right down the toilet if you say the wrong, snide, sarcastic remark at the wrong time. I don't think there is a right time to do that, but you have to be fair. You know, when people are getting up, like, I don't know, some of you might be up here later in the week, you know, and I don't know if you're going to be practicing your homiletics skills or whatever in front of people. But I mean, if you're the teacher of that class and you're having students get up and do things, you want to be fair as to how you assess them. You don't want to play favorites or think, wow, oh, I can't wait for you to get up here, and yeah, you just wait. I don't know if I'm ready for you yet. You know, you want to assess fairly and not play favorites, because that's establishing rapport and relationship. You don't want to base it on personalities. You want to be fluent. You can work on this. Fluency. You know, how you speak. You don't want to be, no one can understand every other word that you're saying, or you're way too quiet, or you speak way too fast. Okay? You can work on your fluency and your communicativeness. And you also have to watch your tone, how you speak, and choose your vocabulary well, you know, for your group. You don't want to speak way over them. At the same time, you don't want to underestimate people and speak way below them and sort of insult their intelligence. And you just want to be pleasant. Providing examples, definitions, testimonies, statistics, if it comes up. And then two other things here that are big in educational circles nowadays is what they call vocabulary and background knowledge. Vocabulary and background knowledge. You know, if you're a teacher, if you really want your students to understand what you are talking about, then you have to really think about, before your lesson begins, what are some words that my students may not know? And I want to make sure that I explain them as I'm going along. You would do that in a classroom when you're teaching. Sometimes you think to do it in a service when you're preaching as well. But you can't always be hyper-conscious of that when you're preaching in a service, especially if you're preaching here in Baltimore, where you have the majority of the people in the congregation are very well taught and understand your vocabulary very, very well. You know, and I think it's awesome that we have this provision of 7 footsteps, which introduces new people to the vocabulary that we use in our church, and we teach the doctrines, and we talk about what is the finished work, and all these different things that some people never heard before. But when you're in a classroom setting like this and you're teaching, you want to make sure that you define some vocabulary, because you want everyone to be able to follow you. And then background knowledge. I notice that sometimes we do it all the time in church. You know, someone will come up and say, you know, let's turn to this passage in John, and you all know the story, you know, and then they just start talking about it. It's like, we all know the story. And for the most part, we all know the story. But there's some people sitting there like, I don't know what this story is. I don't know what he's talking about. You know, first-time visitors. But I mean, you know, if the Holy Spirit has a way of like reaching people, even if they don't have that background knowledge, and speaking to them, there's always a way that if people are open and receptive, that, you know, He will speak to their hearts. But in a classroom setting, we don't want to always be assuming that everyone knows the story or everyone understands the context of what we're talking about. We want to make sure that we're all on the same page and then proceed from there. Because you don't want to lose anybody, because once people check out, it's really hard to get them back. So think about that as before you even step into the classroom. Like, what sorts of things do I know, but that I can't assume that my students know? And I'm just going to make a point of checking. And if they don't, if it seems like nobody's heard of this, like, how many of you know anything about the Jonestown flood? And some people are like, I think, and most people are like, okay, well, knowing this is going to be really important to what we're talking about today. So I want to take some time and share this with you. And then everything else that you say after that, they're going to be like, oh. And if they didn't know it, they'd be like, huh? Okay, so background knowledge. Let's see. Rapport. This is a whole subject on its own, and I'm not going to talk about this a lot, and we don't have this problem here tonight, praise God, but sometimes when you are teaching in a classroom, you have some students that really aren't interested in learning while they're there. And in fact, they're interested in making sure that nobody learns anything that night. And they're going to be a behavior problem in the classroom. You've never experienced that teaching children at GGCA, have you, Andy? No, because they're all little saints and angels. No, but even adults, that are not mature people, or they can do things that are distracting. They can do all kinds of things, and so we talk about this. We call this classroom management, and how do you deal with people to try and minimize these distractions and these behaviors that are going to take away from the educational environment of the classroom. Okay, and that's a whole other topic, and we're not going to go into that. But as far as classroom management goes, there's just a few principles that help with rapport. And one is that you keep your cool. It's like I'm watching Diane Garbrack back there, and boy, she's, and all of a sudden I just don't go, Diane, will you please knock it off? Gosh, or just get out. I'm trying to teach up here. I don't know who you think you are, so you don't, look at, all of a sudden everyone's like, whoa, what's going on? And all of a sudden the focus is back there, and I've lost all of you, and that what we were talking about, it's gone. I'm going to have to do a lot of work to bring it back around. So keeping your cool, if you see something that's going on that, is just detracting from what's going on in the classroom. That's one point. That helps with the rapport, keeping it there. Resist being provoked. You think that would never happen in Bible college. Oh, yes, it does. I taught English back in the day in Bible college. And man, I had some provokers. Yes. And of course, if you're going to discipline people, you have to make it judicious, meaning it's got to be fair and it's got to be reasonable. And it's not going to be like everyone's thinking wow, that was severe. That was way over the top. That was way more than that warranted. Screaming at Diane. Oh my gosh, he almost broke my eardrums. That guy's a jerk. Man, I wouldn't want to be in his class all the time. He's ridiculous. So when you're going to deal with people, you want to make it low key. If Diane was doing something back here, and I was actively moving around and making eye contact and talking about my subject, I could just come back here and stand next to her, and maybe she'd get the impression oh, I've somehow attracted the teacher's attention, and I really didn't want that. And so maybe she might stop what she's doing, or I could just bring her into, hey, so Diane, what do you think about this? And get her involved in everything. All of a sudden, oh, okay, I think, I won't do that anymore. But, make it low key, keep the class going. And, and then also when students do well, if you want to grease the wheels there, is you praise people when they do a good job. People respond to that. Doesn't matter how old you are. You like to know when you've done something right. Because all the time you're in school, if you don't know anything and you're just learning it, you always feel like you're doing everything wrong. So when you do something right, it's like, oh, he noticed. She noticed. And it just gives you a little bit more confidence. And it's like, yeah, I'm part of this class. Yeah. I thought I was going to say something stupid, but he said it was good. And that means that they're going to be more willing to participate the next time. That's the purpose. Rapport, having a relationship. So they become part of it. Okay. Let's see. Oh, last one. Have some common sense. Common sense. You can try, And what you need to do is you need to be a little bit aware. Did you have one of those teachers that didn't know what was going on in the classroom? And they were always up there writing on the board and everything, and they had paper airplanes and paper balls, spitballs going across the classroom, and all of a sudden someone's like, stop it! Then the teacher turns around, everyone's like, who said stop it? And that's the person that got in trouble, not all the people that were doing all the things that irritated them. So you want to have some common sense. You don't want to do what I just did, turn your back to everybody, and you want to be always assessing what's going on in the classroom. Okay? You want to do sort of like preventive action if you can. You can see things coming, like, look at that guy over there. He's just smirking. I know he's going to try to get away with something over there. Jerry Roberge. Yeah. Okay. So you assess it. When you see something that's going to happen, you know it's going to happen, do something about it. Okay? You assess it quickly. Okay? You make a good decision. You got to think on your feet. You got to know things to ignore. Some teachers are just way hypersensitive. The kid is going to scratch their head and put your hand down. It's not time for questions yet. I had an itch, So you know what to ignore, because if something's not worth making a big deal out of. It's not. Maybe you're the only person that sees it going on, and you're the only person that's being distracted by it. But everyone else is perfectly fine. But if I bring it up, everyone's going to turn around and look. And then there I go. I've lost them all. So sometimes it's just best to ignore certain things, unless it's going to cause harm or really deteriorate really fast. That's where the assessment and using your common sense comes in. If I let this continue, is this going to really ruin things? Am I going to be dealing with a huge, big problem later? Or is this something I can just let lie? Talk to the student after class. Okay? Knowing when you need to react, and then, like I mentioned before, being proactive. If I see it coming, if I see Diane back there and I just know, I see her folding her paper into a paper airplane, and I know that she's probably going to throw it as soon as she gets a chance, I can just be walking around the room, and as I walk past her desk, I just take it, I put it in my pocket, and just keep going, teaching and everything. I foiled her plan. Okay. So, it is now 20 minutes before 8. You've been very good. What I want to do is I want to give you a short break because I need one. I need to drink some water. But let's say when it's quarter of, that's 7 or 8 minutes here, take a quick bathroom break, drink break, and then we'll meet back in here again, okay? And that gives me time to organize my next thing too. Everyone will find out what these things are.